From 12 News, this is Newsmakers.
Rhode Island is on track to have a competitive race for Attorney General in 2026. So far, 3 Democrats are vying to replace term-limited incumbent Peter Nerona, and more could emerge. This week on the first half of Newsmakers, we'll hear the pitch from former Cannabis Control Commission Chair and candidate for AG, Kim Ahern. Then, a new group wants to shake up the State House by electing more lawmakers who oppose progressive causes. Can they succeed where others have tried and failed? On the second half, League of RI Business co-founder David Levesque. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White alongside 12 News Politics editor Ted Nesi. And we welcome back to the program Kim Ahern, but in a different position, Democratic candidate for Attorney General. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back on.
So, 60 seconds or less, why do you want to be Rhode Island's next Attorney General?
Thank you. The Attorney General is the state's chief law enforcement officer. The Attorney General's job is to keep Rhode Islanders safe. My entire career has been dedicated to doing just that. As a prosecutor under the past 3 Attorneys General, I personally have prosecuted over 1,000 cases involving violent crime. I've brought justice to hundreds of survivors, in particular those experiencing domestic violence and sexual assault offenses. I've worked every step of the way to keep our communities safe. As a legal counsel to the past 2 governors and as the head of a new state agency, I've worked hard to keep our communities safe, our systems fair, and our values strong. Listen, the Attorney General also has a really important role to play right now with this administration in Washington, D.C., whenever it attacks our residents or our fundamental values or freedoms. If you know anything about my career, you know I do not back down from a fight. And I'm ready to do that as our next Attorney General.
Why don't we, I want to pick up right there, actually, because Rhode Island, as you know, is somewhat unique in that we do not have district attorneys in the state. I think Delaware is another one. So all felony criminal cases have to go through the Attorney General's office. And Attorney General Nerona has often said he needs more staff, for sure. Other state attorneys general simply have more bandwidth to file lawsuits against presidential administrations. You have said that you want to continue these fights with the Trump administration. Any concern that continuing these fights with the Trump administration is undercutting the core mission of the Attorney General's office?
No, I think the next Attorney General needs to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time, and I expect to do that.
But you only have so much staff.
Right, but we have the right staff. Attorney General Nerona has done a great job of advocating for his staff at the State House, increasing the number of employees that were there since I left. I think it went from a number of around 240 to 270 employees. And listen, the AG's office is unique, you're right. We are the state's DA, the county prosecutor, all the things. And there's 2 critical missions there. The criminal division, prosecuting violent crime, and the civil division, standing up for Rhode Islanders' fundamental rights and freedoms. And right now, that is fighting this administration. And I'm grateful that the Democratic Attorney Generals all get together and do that collaboratively. I was just in D.C. last week, got to spend some time with a number of Democratic AGs. You know what they do? They get on a Zoom every other day, the actual Attorney General themselves. Not the staffers, it's the AGs. And they talk about what this administration is doing, and then they decide collaboratively who to take on and where. And more often than not, that's right here in Rhode Island. We are punching way above our weight in terms of those cases.
Why don't you be honest about why that is?
Well, I think it's because, 1, we have a small federal judiciary. I think you can get in front of our 3 federal court judges very quickly, as opposed to California, as opposed to New York. And then you're very quickly moving up, right? Moving through the courts into the First Circuit. I think a number of our judges are appointed by Democratic presidents, but at the same time, I know that they take seriously their oath when they're sworn in as judges.
Well, while we're talking about the civil side, and we have questions on the criminal side we want to ask you too. This is a question I've been asking all the AG candidates who come by because I think it's an interesting lens onto this. A few months back, Justice Barrett, the U.S. Supreme Court Justice Barrett, was asked, and she sort of downplayed this idea some people have that the country's in a constitutional crisis. She said, quote, "We would clearly be in one if the rule of law crumbles, but that is not the place where we are." What do you think? Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, Ted, this isn't the first time that I've disagreed with Amy Coney Barrett. And I do think we're in a constitutional crisis. And by that, I mean that our system was built by our founders with some fundamental checks and balances in place. And by that, I mean both Congress and the U.S. Supreme Court are there to put a check on a presidential power and authority, and neither is doing that right now. And that is why it is all the more important to have a strong state attorney general to stand up for our fundamental rights and freedoms.
But I know the case people bring up is immigration cases where they still deport somebody when the judge's order had just been issued or something. But generally, the administration, once the Supreme Court weighs in, they do go along with what the Supreme Court says, and the Supreme Court decides what the law is.
Yeah, and that's why I think right now in our country what we're seeing is Congress has the ability to step in and legislate and issue funding for different causes and things like that. And essentially they're writing a blank check by giving the authority entirely to this administration. So I think those are some of the cases we've seen in real time be filed, not just here, but around the country, where state AGs are taking on the front lines of fighting for our freedoms.
Is there any area or issue where you differ from Attorney General Peter Neronha?
Yeah, so first, I referenced at the beginning, I'm honored to have served under 3 attorneys general. I worked under Patrick Lynch, I worked under Kim Ahern and Peter Neronha, and I learned something from each of them. I'm grateful for their leadership. In particular with Attorney General Peter Neronha, I think he's done an excellent job. We've already talked about it, advocating, for example, for more staffing hires at his agency and for fighting, like we just talked about, this administration. One thing I'm concerned about right now are working families in Rhode Island. So working families in Rhode Island are having a really hard go at it, right? Why is that? Because healthcare costs keep rising. The bills for groceries and gas keep going up. And our utility bills are something that keep rising and rising. As a ratepayer advocate, the Attorney General has a few unique statutory roles at the Public Utilities Commission, which, as you know, is the government agency that regulates essential services for gas and utilities. When I was at the AG's office, we actually had a unit that was embedded there at the office, that was embedded on the ground in full time to have access to staff and what was going on there at the DPUC and the PUC. It's my understanding that doesn't happen anymore, and I would bring that back as next Attorney General.
Do you agree or disagree with Neronha's, basically he convinced the PUC not to do Governor McKee's agreement with Rhode Island Energy to give some money back to people in winter relief? He said it was actually not giving as much as they were owed. Who was right? Which of your old bosses was right?
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna say which of the old bosses is right. I will say this, that I just said that I think that a lot of Rhode Islanders are really hurting right now. And I think it's incumbent on the next Attorney General to do what I just said, which is be there every single day, to be eyes and ears on the ground at the Utility Commission to make sure that we have an advocate, a ratepayer advocate that's standing up and keeping a close eye on these rising utility bills.
But you don't take a view on this $100+ million question that just got litigated by these two?
Well, I believe it's still playing out before the PUC, and I'm hopeful that it's decided in a way that helps bring down our utility bills.
Kim, got to ask you about this. The last time you were on the show, you were the chair of the Cannabis Control Commission, newly appointed, I believe, and you said your goal was to roll out a new round of marijuana retail licenses in 2024. That didn't happen. And 7 dispensaries grandfathered in have reaped the benefits from that. Why couldn't you deliver?
Yeah, so I was the head of a new state agency that formed when the General Assembly legalized adult use. Whenever you're rolling out a brand new industry with government regulation, there is always the possibility of corruption. And I'm grateful that the governor and the state senate here entrusted me as the first leader of that entity to prevent that from happening. And also, as I said at the time, my top goal was to regulate in a manner that was safe, transparent, and equitable.
But you did miss the goal you had set, yes?
I think that well, first of all, on that show, I don't think I said 2024, but I have to go back and check that specifically. Right. Because we knew all along that this would be something that we had to be slow and steady with. Our goal was, in fact, to regulate in a manner that was safe, transparent, and equitable, and it was never speed. And it was never speed because we had to build a team from scratch. We had to start a new agency. We had to write the book on adult use cannabis regulations, and all while keeping those important pillars at the forefront of an emerging industry that's on the cusp every decision of public health and public safety. And by the way, right now in Rhode Island, if you want to apply for a retail license, you're able to do so. And I'm proud of the work we did. You
were a frontline prosecutor when you were in the AG's office. As I said, there's so much attention on the civil side in recent years, but we only have a little over a minute left. Is there a case that is very memorable to you from your time in the courts?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, I prosecuted over 1,000 cases while I was there, but one that stands out to me is a man named Curtis Maxey. He was from Pawtucket. He spent a lot of time in downtown Providence, where he trafficked a young girl, only 15 years old, back to his apartment, and he sexually assaulted her, and he sold her online for others to do the same. When I got that case, we worked day and night for years to make sure that girl knew that she had adults that were standing up for her to keep her safe. And when he was convicted and brought to justice and sentenced to 100 years to serve, it sent a message, not just that we're going to keep our children safe. It reminded me why the work matters. It's not political and it's not abstract.
Kim, I want to put you on the spot. I'd like to ask all candidates this. We are going to host debates here in Channel 12. Will you agree to debate your Democratic candidates for Attorney General on Channel 12?
Of course, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Democratic candidate for Attorney General, Kim Ahern, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for your time. When
we come back, the argument against progressivism at the State House. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White, Ted Nesi, and our guest on the second half is David Levesque. He's the co-founder of League of RI Businesses. David, good to have you in the program.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't we do this? What is League of RI Businesses? What's the plan? What's the mission?
Well, the plan is to try to change as many House and Senate seats as we possibly can. It's the only thing that we're focused on.
At the State House, to be clear.
At the State House. So we're looking at whenever there's an open seat, we're going to try to put somebody in it. If there's somebody up there that we feel is passing unconstitutional laws, not doing their job, and it's an issue, we're going to try to find somebody for that seat. Most of what we'll fight in will be in the primary.
So what would be a sign of success to you? You look down the road, how many conservative candidates or conservative leading candidates getting elected to the General Assembly would tell you, yep, this worked out?
Well, if we got one person elected with our group, we'd be a success. We hope to have 4, 5, 6 House seats, and we think we might have as many as 6 or 7 Senate seats at the rate we're going right now. So we have two different things. We have somebody who would be an endorsed candidate and somebody who would be a supported candidate.
What's the difference? Well, I was just going to say that.
I knew you'd ask that question. So a supported candidate means it's somebody that's running. We like who they are. We like what they do. We're willing to, give support to them in a limited way. Money, but in a limited way. Could be a couple $100, could be a couple thousand, depending on the race and or the person. And it's a race that we know is a challenge. What we won't do with the money that we raise, we won't spend good money that's raised on a race we don't think we can win. When someone's on our list as an endorsed candidate, like Leah Beauclair down in Charlestown, District 36 on the House seat, and Mark Mesrobian in District 36 on the Senate side, they are both endorsed candidates. Out of the gate, we've given them substantial amounts of money. Leah got $8,000 to begin with. We followed up with another $2,000. Mark got a $10,000 donation from $2,000 from 5 PACs. We believe those races are fully winnable with the people we have. Both of those will be in a primary. One will be taking out Tina Spears. The other will be taking out Alana DeMario.
So you have the attention of people at the State House because they nervously will say things to make, and not every group that tries this, so that's already a little sign of making an impact. There is a lot of talk up there about your relationship to Senate leadership. Some Senate leaders Senate Democratic leaders were seen at the kickoff for one of your candidates. What is your relationship with Leader Ciccone and Whip Ticoyan?
Well, Ciccone, I just met recently. I have no relationship with Ciccone. David Ticoyan I've known for years, from when he was a police officer. And that's to the extent of a relationship. They never did any bills for us. There's nothing we worked with. When it comes to Mark Mesrobian, I've known Mark for probably 20 plus years.
This is your candidate, I think, against DeMario?
Against DeMario.
Yep,
that's a Senate seat against DeMario. I was the first person Mark called. I was in my basement at the time. We didn't even have the League of Rhode Island Businesses to the extent we do now. We had just one PAC, the League of Rhode Island Business PAC, the main PAC, which we started during COVID. And Mark approached me, and I thought it was a great idea. So he did everything he had to do to get to this point, and
you have there was the main PACs. You now have 40 PACs instead of one. Is that to exploit a campaign finance loophole?
I wouldn't use the word exploit. I would say we built an engine that is extremely impressive. So as we find a candidate in a particular area, for example, we just interviewed a gentleman for the East Bay for Senate. If he decides that he wants to run, we will go raise money in the district that he's in all those cities and towns, so we can raise money in order to support that candidate. By having 40 PACs, it literally gives us the ammunition and engine in order.
Well, why not 80 PACs? Why not 100 PACs, David, if you're not exploiting it?
Listen, if you talk to the Board of Elections, what we did is extraordinary, never done before. We opened the most amount of PACs that anybody's ever done. And if we had to open more, we will. We don't need to at this point. You know, having 40 PACs would allow us the ability to give $80,000 to an individual candidate if we raise the money to do so. There's no other organization in the state of Rhode Island that can put that kind of money into a candidate's hands. And it's all by the Board of Election rules, and it's legal.
Can you talk about how you think about that? This is a tension I've seen for years with folks who think that the sort of the way the House and the Senate are legislating is too far to the left. Do you try to change who's in the Democratic caucus through primaries, or do you try to elect more Republicans for balance between the two parties up there? You all are making a calculation to be more focused, I think, on the primaries, as you said earlier, right? Why that calculation, thinking about what your long-term goals are for what changes at the State House?
Yep. Well, number one, we as a group, we've never talked about what party we're in or who's in. It's all about the people. It's all about the process. So we don't care whether it's Republican, Democrat, or Independent. We can start out with that. Why do we want to do it in the primary? Go back 3 elections ago. 16% of the people in Rhode Island in the primary decided who was going to be mainly up at the State House. 2 elections ago, it went up to 17%. The last election, it dropped down to 9%. That means 9% of the people in Rhode Island determined who was going to be, more than likely, the way Rhode Island is, the next senator or the next House seat. You know, think about like Alana DeMario. If nobody goes up against her and only 9% of the people voted, well, now 9% of the people have dictated who does what in Rhode Island. It's easier for us.
Because the Democratic nomination is so valuable.
Yeah, in that case, yes. It makes it easier for us to fight that in the primary. We can do it with fewer dollars. And it's easier for us to take people who may have been a Republican, transfer on, become an independent, and now they can go vote in the Democratic primary in order to get one of our candidates elected. And our first 3 fully endorsed candidates, one's about to announce soon, are all Democrats. So people can say, well, this is a right wing, this is a left wing. It's not. It's literally, we just want middle of the road, common sense people. We don't want the nonsense that's going up there.
I don't think anyone's saying you're a left-wing group, David.
That's 100% true. You're right.
We have to go to a break. Okay. Let's take a break on Newsmakers. Our conversation with David Levesque. He's a co-founder of the League of Rhode Island Businesses. Will be on the next section of Newsmakers. Stay with us. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. This is 12 News Politics Editor Ted Nesi. I remembered your name. David Levesque is our guest. He's co-founder of League of RI Businesses. I read in the Rhode Island Current that you said Speaker Shekarchi's speech to gun right advocates about getting involved helped you, spur to do this. Okay, I'm just wondering if you view the speaker as an ally or someone who just gave you good advice.
Well, he can be an ally sometimes and then not, but he did give us good advice. If it wasn't for the speaker saying, hey, you got to get united, you got to get involved, and you got to do this for the long haul, not the short term, we wouldn't have been here. We wouldn't have done this. It was at that meeting, then a few people stepped up, and from there it ran. So we got to give him full credit for making this happen.
I'm sure his members getting primary to love it.
Right. Do you think he'll regret that speech to you then?
I don't think he thought we'd follow through with it. You know, at that point, we were one PAC. We weren't organized. All the people in the room had never got together before. People that are part of my group right now were 2 of the people that stood up and said, you got to run with this. I said, I want nothing to do with it. I said, I got too much stuff on my plate now. So does he regret it? I don't know.
To that point, actually, so you were in that meeting about the gun bills. And one of the things that's coming up a lot from your opponents in Rhode Island politics is this is really a gun rights group who is masking itself as a pro-business group because that has more purchase with the voters. What do you say to that?
It's 100% wrong. The problem was we didn't have the ability to get a fair shake on a bill up at the State House. And the only way to make change is to have good, pro-business, common sense people up there. So it's not about this. I mean, look at the way the state of Rhode Island's run. 5 years ago, we had a $9 billion budget. It only went up during COVID. It was supposed to go back down. Now it's $14 billion. We're $400 million in the hole. Where's that? They're not going up next session to say, oh, how are we going to reduce the budget so we make up the $400 million? They're going to come back and they're going to tax the 2 of you. You're going to have to pay it. Rhode Island's broke. We need to fix this. So it's how do we fix it? You can't fix it if you don't change the legislator. We don't care who sits at the governor's seat. We're focused on House and Senate seats. We change the House and Senate seats. Common people, doesn't matter what party, we can fix Rhode Island.
True or false, Rep. Julie Casimiro is your top target?
She's a top target because she threatened a business. You can't, here's the way we look at things. You can't go up there, be a sitting representative, and then go threaten a business and think it's okay. I don't care if it was a Republican, if they did that, we wouldn't back them. You go up there, you get elected by your constituents. The Constitution's your guide that you're supposed to follow. And then you get elected by your constituents. You got to do what's best for them under that guide of the Constitution. And threatening businesses is not part of that. Once you do that, you're off the table. She's got to go. Matter of fact, I don't think she's running anyways. The word that we got is that she's not running, and she's going to try to slip somebody in. So she'll have a couple fundraisers, or supposedly have a couple fundraisers, but I don't think she's running.
All right, well, we have not confirmed that, fair.
So.
They can make the assertion. I want to ask you, let's stick with your business. You own Brewed Awakenings. And, this sort of relates to what we're talking about, but different. Reading a lot about coffee prices going up, and we're reporters, so we drink a lot of coffee. Yes. So we think about coffee prices. How is that affecting you, and how much is tariffs part of it? Have you been buying coffee in advance to get ahead of it? How have you been dealing with that as a business owner?
No, we don't buy coffee in advance. We got a really good agreement with our coffee roaster, and our price is based on how the market goes. If it goes every quarter, if it moves up more than a dime, then our price gets adjusted accordingly. And we're dealing with it. I know Trump recently knocked down the tariffs on coffee, so that'll obviously help keep prices down. But there's been fluctuation with green markets and weather conditions over the years, so it's no different.
So you're a supporter of President Trump's. I've read business owners who support President Trump. They say they like all sorts of other things that he's doing, but the tariffs drive them a little crazy because they don't feel like it's helping them do their jobs. What's your view on it?
I think ultimately things will fix itself. We had a very, very tough system when Biden was in, and he's making changes, and I think ultimately it'll correct itself.
All right, we have a little less than a minute left here, David. I read, so this might have changed, that you had raised about $60,000 so far.
We're over $100,000 at this point collectively.
What's your goal?
Well, I made a goal of at least $1 million by the next election, and I think we'll hit it. More and more money comes in every time we have an event like this, speaking with you guys, or the Journal articles. I just saw we were in the Globe, which just came out. There's a possibility we could raise several $1 million.
All right. David Levesque, he is the co-founder of League of RI Businesses. Thanks so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
And don't forget to check out Eli Sherman's Behind the Story. I believe he has Alex Kupner on this week, Providence Journal. Great reporter. Make sure you watch that. You can check it out on the screen right there. Those are all the times. If you missed any of our program, it's on WPRI.com. For Ted Nesi, I'm Tim White. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.